You know what's crazy is we dream about the rut, the whitetail rut, every single year. And I was just thinking back, we went down to Kentucky hunting about the third weekend of September. And I remember thinking then, driving down, that, you always look back at some point in the season and think, where'd the season go? And we're at that point in mid-November, third week in November now. And it's that time where the rut's actually starting to end or ending by the time you see this. And that's a pretty big bummer. I get pretty bummed out about it. I love late season. I love late season food sources. Muzzleloader hunting is my favorite. I love muzzleloader hunting. I like watching fields fill up with a bunch of deer, knowing a monster could step out at any point. But there's a lot of opportunity towards the end of the rut. And I want you to focus on two things. When it comes to the rut ending, we're going to talk about when it ends in your area and why. But in some areas, why it ends, some areas why it doesn't. We'll mention the South really quick. In the South, when does it start? When does it end? Well, it depends on what does are in your area and when they came into estrus last year, because they'll keep that 365-day cycle. They'll come back in about the same time they did last year. So it's almost like hunting individual doe family groups. And if I had an option, and I knew this island to cover had some does that I saw some really good rutting activity last year, I'd get on that at that same time. And if I had good weather versus bad weather, I'd slant towards maybe cooler days. Cooler meaning maybe 70 for you down in Louisiana, or when you just didn't have a bunch of rain or just cleared up. And yeah, deer move in the rain, deer move in the heat. But at the same time, again, we're trying to just make smart choices and play poker in the deer woods. Really go in when you expect them to move, which could be at any time during the rut, but chances are they'll move during better weather times we talk about on this channel, and try to teach you so you can go to the woods more equipped to make good decisions. But when it comes to how to hunt this portion, and we'll talk about the timing. How to hunt is, I want you to focus on two things. I want you to focus on the end of the rut, which for us is right now. We're 14th of November. Dylan and I are going to go out to sit this afternoon. I already said, there's a chance I could see LL beams. That's the one we're going after. And I'm hoping to see them. And then we could see some monster. I'm hunting in an extreme corner of the property tonight. We could see a monster from a mile away, because when it gets to the end of the rut, those mature bucks want to find a doe, and those old boys are willing to travel a long ways to go look for them. So when we're sitting in a nice long range funnel, we have bedding area on one side, bedding area on another. We have ag fields on the back side of us. Pretty random for those fields, for deer to go out into. Neighbor's food plot way down below us, about 400 yards. We're in that corner of movement where if a mature buck is traveling and cruising, he could come up out of cover right to us. He doesn't even have to go out into the open field. He could just swing through looking into another bedding area where there's does. So we're going to watch that pinch point of movement tonight. And that's one way towards the end of the rut I really like to focus on, especially in the afternoon, evening. Think about those bucks. Around here, they start in that pre-rut, the 20th of October, 25th of October. They start getting really ruddy. They're really moving hard. And 3 weeks later, they're wore out. We saw one of our 5-year-old target bucks today, Junior, on camera early in the morning, and he looked lean. And it's probably because he's been running hard for 3 weeks. They can't do that for 60 days straight, 30 days straight. And so that timing of the rut is a good thing. And we'll talk about that timing, but when he gets up to the north, that timing has to be a very small window, because fawns that are born early die, fawns that are born late die. And they can't rut and lose that much energy going into a winter where there's 50% winter mortality on fawns, for example, just fawns alone. So that rut has to be a lot more condensed and short. You get down the south, that's why it's so random. It can take place over a 3 or 4 month period. So I love that late flurry of rutting activity right before things settle down, focusing on food in the afternoon, because these deer are trying to replenish energy reserves that they just destroyed over a 3-week period. Now, after the rut ends, same kind of focus, although I like to sit back and watch food sources. So that food source represents that bottom of the funnel of daylight movement for right after the rut. Think about those big bucks. They're laying down at daybreak. They're laying down all day. They get up. They might move around 20 yards, browse. They have to during the middle of the day, get some food. They feed every 4 to 5 hours. But they really want to put the feed bag on and replenish those energy reserves after that rut is over. So a lot of times they're sitting all day. You're not going to see a lot of movement. All of a sudden, the scrapes go dry. You're not seeing camera movement, but they're hitting those food sources really hard. And we actually saw that in Wisconsin last night with some of our cell cameras, some of the bigger bucks hitting food in the afternoon, evening. They're really focusing on that and out there. And I'm sure there's a flurry of rut activity. But by the time it begins the 25th, it starts to peak the 4th, 5th, 6th, 3rd of November. By the 10th of November, it's really slowing down. By the 14th through the 17th, which is right now, it's really, really slowing and almost coming to a stop, especially for all-day movement. So whether it's the end of the rut and there's still a little flurry, I'm going to watch these pinch points near food, bedding, kind of especially near these fields. And then after the rut, I'm really watching those food sources. So there's a lot of hope. I mean, those bucks really hone in on those food sources. It might seem like, hey, there's not a lot of movement. We're not seeing a lot of deer on those food sources. Well, if you've spooked out the food and you consider a lot of bucks have already been shot, you're just not going to see that much activity. So I'm looking for hidden, unpressured food sources, which hopefully, following the tips on this channel, you've been able to manage your land or where you hunt so you can have those hidden food sources to watch and actually suck in deer this time of year. So when is this going to happen for you? I already talked about the dates around here that would be similar in the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, New York, northern Pennsylvania. You could look at taking those dates I just talked about, starting the 25th, really winding down by the 14th to 17th, and add about 5 to 7 days if you're in southern Illinois, maybe over into southern Iowa, northern Missouri, over into Kentucky, West Virginia, southeast Ohio, maybe even over into southern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Virginia. Just look at that being a little bit, West Virginia, a little bit behind us up in this area. And then again, when you're down in the extreme south, then you're looking for that flurry of activity and really hunting individual doe groups. And so you still have a lot of rutting. I was down in Alabama. It's been a long time, maybe close to 20 years, 18 years, somewhere around there. Down in Alabama before in late January. And man, there are stinky scrapes open up. Bucks that had tarsal glands stinking and peeing on their legs and making scrapes and doing all the running activity and chasing. And that was late January. So it happened to be real frosty that time too. So a lot of activity, deer were really moving. But look at that timing for you. And then you guys can't forget about the second rut. Now in the south, that could be random. You're not really focused on a second rut. And it's hard because you can even look at the data for Michigan. And when they ultrasounded does, over 2,000 does over about 25, 30 years. So pretty good tabulation. They saw no correlation with the rut based on the moon, anything. And there's research findings for that. Azoga and Verm and those guys did all these studies back in the day. But they found that I think it was about over 80%, 85% of the does were bred within a 10-day window on either side of the 13th of November. Well, that's taking into account the second rut too. And so you could actually move that more probably till the 9th, 10th, 11th of November, somewhere around there. But bottom line is there's not much of a secondary rut in the UP of Michigan. So if you're using UP of Michigan data, then there is a flurry and it does push that average back for when does are bred. But consider that if does are bred in December up there and you already have 50% mortality rate on fawns in an average winter up in those locations, then if you move that conception date back a month, those fawns are in really big trouble. And so they just don't have a chance. And so nature's way of condensing that rut in a northern region there, we're down in the south, it doesn't have to be. So that second rut, we're really looking for that in our area right here, in those states that I mentioned across the north. And then you could drop down to Iowa, I would even say Kansas, but you go Kansas over to Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, West Virginia, Southern Ohio, in that line. We're looking at like our peak rut is the 4th of November, 6th of November, because again, we're not figuring in the average of the second rut. Some states do that. So they'll say, well, our rut is typically the 20th of November is peak. Well, that's because they're figuring in the second rut. They just look at all the conception dates, average them all out. They don't look at individual peaks like that. So you always have to consider that when you're looking at state data, and I have looked at them. They're off the charts. I mean, literally one county across the state line could be a 10-day to 2-week variance in rutting activity. And those deer don't know a state line, a state road, or a county road, and that separates these two counties in different states. It's because one state tabulates the data a lot differently than that other state. A second rut around here, you just fast forward to that peak rut time, which is early December for us around here. And it might be more like 10th, 15th of December if you're down in one of those West Virginia, Kentucky areas. But bottom line, it is coming. It's a fraction of what happens in the primary rut. But those big boys know what it's all about, and they're willing to move a long ways. I love doing a little bit of morning hunting, and especially focusing on those afternoon food source movements. In particular, the one we're talking about this afternoon, where it's got good funnel, good food-related activity with the ag land wrapping around the outside. That's a good location for that. In between bedding areas, not too far back in the woods. We're waiting for the deer to come out to us, but we get a good glimpse into rural remote areas that are completely untouched. So rest assured, the rut is coming to conclusion somewhere in your area, unless you're the deep south. And there's always that second rut just around the corner. You can't miss that. It's an incredible time to hunt. I can hope you can take full advantage of hunting that second rut this year. And you know, it starts getting cold. And obviously we're in the north. We're used to hunting in this cold. In fact, I'm looking at my bibs right here from last year. These are the thermic bibs from First Light. And I'm looking at them. If you guys can see, it was a warm December last year. I don't know if you can see all that mud. Dylan will have to show it later, plastered over these bibs. And so I'm thinking they need to be washed is what I'm thinking. But bottom line is, I like a lot colder temperature than the mud that's on those bibs. And there are some incredible deals on First Light starting the 21st of November for their Black Friday sales. It extends for a long period of time. Check it out. There's a link in the description, up to 40% off. A lot of the really good stuff that we like to wear. Too many things to list out, but that's their big sale every year. So don't miss out. Don't miss out on this end of rut period, whether you're hunting food sources, funnels, or you're looking forward to that second rut coming soon to a whitetail woods near you. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. You're our best followers. You followed all the way to the end of the video. Really invite you to check out our website. We have our earthway spreaders for sale. Great Christmas presents. We're booking clients right now, all 5 of us. So by the end of December, it seems early, but by the end of December, our schedule will be booked for 2025. It's hard to believe. I'm already booked for December and most of January, February. We have our web classes, the Rut web class, how to design your whitetail property, and really important, hunting hills and thermals, understanding the wind. Those are great products on our site, all the books. Thank you so much for watching all the videos, buying the seed that you did this year. Really appreciate you.